That was risky. Welcome to the Chapters in Chai Book Club.
I'm Amanda.
And I'm Francesca. And we're two sisters who absolutely love reading, but we do have pretty opposite reading styles.
So grab your favorite drink, settle in, and let's turn some pages together.
Today we're having some homemade matcha.
Yes.
Amanda made this and it's actually delicious.
Oh, did you try it?
Yes, I did.
Oh, you didn't say anything.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's delicious. It's more oat milk than matcha, but I love it.
I love a pale matcha.
Yeah.
Because I get jittery if it's too strong.
And it's a bit bitter. If it's too strong, it's like,
yeah,
I don't like the taste.
I find it bitter. But I think we're just weak.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's mainly just oat milk. And then it's like half a teaspoon of matcha. But it's nice.
I love it. And it's a nice like dessert. It has a little bit of honey, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a nice
I did
dessert.
honey.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad you like it.
Yeah, it's lovely. So today we are going to be going through our 5 favorite books of 2024. Mm-hmm. And then we're also going to talk about our TBR for the month of January. So should we get started?
Let's do it. So let me preface by saying that the year of 2024 was not my best reading year.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Well, first and most importantly, because I was getting married, and so a lot of my free time went into planning the wedding. It was all worth it. It was worth it, but I had less time to read. So like the year prior, I read something like 56 books, and then like now 2024, I read, I think it was 24 books in total, so about half. And in those 24 books that I read, things didn't hit quite as much. I don't know why. I think maybe my mind was distracted, or I just wasn't picking up books that were like my 5-star reads. So I did not have that many 5-star reads, unfortunately. But I picked my favorite 5 of the ones that I read. And we'll do another video in the future where we talk about our favorite books overall, like of all time, let's say. So there will be better recommendations there. But okay, I had a couple that were nice and I'm excited to share them. All right, so the first book that I'm going to talk about is actually the last book that I read of 2024. And it's a man called Ove, or Uwe, actually.
Uwe,
I listened to a lot of it on Audible, so that's why I know how to pronounce it. They pronounce it Uwe, I think. It's by Fredrik Backman, which is a Swedish author. And it's a litfic, just a novel. And I gave it a 4.75. It's a story about Uwe, which is this grumpy old man, and kind of follows his story. He's just gone through something sad, and then this chipper couple moves in as new neighbors, and it kind of follows the story of him befriending them against all odds. And it's a very heartwarming novel. It has moments of sadness and moments of like where you laugh. It's both funny and sad. And some of the quotes in this book really hit hard. I left this book feeling more compassion for people going through the things that Uwe is going through in the book. It just made me reflect a lot and think about people around me. And just be more compassionate. And there's some quotes here that just made me cry. I was listening to this one day on Audible while cooking, and I was like trying not to get my tears into the food. So my first book is that. I highly recommend.
Nice. I love that. I'm certain I will have to read that book at some point in our book club. So I'm more of a fantasy reader, so I cannot pick a book. I'm picking whole series. So I'm going to start off with A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. This, actually, Amanda bought this for me, and it was my first fantasy book ever, and I feel like this is the perfect book to get you into fantasy because it's so easy to read. It introduces everything in such a like smooth way, and I didn't struggle to keep up with all the new words and all the fantasy, like how these fantasy things work. And it was just so good. Now, this is not my favorite book of the series. My favorite books actually is the second book, which is A Court of Mist and Fury, and A Court of Silver Flames. The first one was amazing as well. I loved it. But these two, they just hit different. If you know, you know. So the first book, A Court of Thorns and Roses, is actually a retelling of Beauty and the Beast. So it's pretty similar, and it follows a girl named Feyre, who is a human, and she is brought to the fairylands. And basically, fairies are these very scary creatures that have been killing human beings for like centuries, and she's very scared when she goes there, and she has this like the worst image possible, especially her capturer. She's so scared of him in the beginning, and she just thinks that he's a monster. So you can probably imagine what's gonna end up happening. The first book was maybe a little bit slow, and once you start reading the second book, you will understand why the first book cannot be your favorite book, because the second book will be your favorite book. The reason why I love this series overall, and why I'm gonna give this series a 5-star. The first book is not a 5-star. The second and the final book are 5 stars. But I just love how Sarah J. Maas writes. She makes you, first of all, love all the characters. I think her series have like the best found families. It's just so easy to read. I mean, she does do info dumps, and sometimes the pacing can be a bit off, but eventually the world building is so good and it's so interesting, and you really get into the politics of it. So like, I love the romance parts, but also the actual politics behind everything is so interesting. So it's not just about romance. Now, the last book, A Court of Silver Flames, you will be a bit shocked probably with the POV, but just stick with it, trust it. Sarah knows what she's doing. It's very good. So that's my first. Yeah.
All right. For my next one, it's The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides. Basically, it's a thriller. It's a psychological thriller. It talks about, or tells the story of a psychotherapist. I'm not sure if he was a psychotherapist or something else. Theo, who starts working on a case of a murderer, Alicia, who murdered her husband out of the blue. She had a seemingly perfect life, the perfect marriage, and then one day she just kills her husband, and nobody knows why, and then she hasn't said a word since. Theo starts working with her, trying to get her to talk, and he's pretty sure that he can. And it basically follows the story of that, and I really loved just how everything unraveled. I personally could not guess how things would work out. And for those of you who did not watch our previous video, this is going to be a book club video for January. So Francesca's actually reading it as we speak. Yeah. So we'll be hearing her thoughts at the beginning of February. Mm-hmm. And yeah, if anybody wants to follow along, you can still pick it up. It's kind of a shorter book. And for stars, I would give it a 4.5.
Okay, nice. So for me, the next series again is the Once Upon a Broken Heart series by Stephanie Garber. This was a very, again, easy fantasy read. This was very just cozy, and the vibes were vibing, and the world building in this book was just so nice. I loved it. It's this wintry, just fairy tale with the magic, and the romance is just so nice, and I absolutely loved our MMC. I was in love with him. So I would actually give the first 2 books 5 stars. So it's the Once Upon a Broken Heart and the Ballad of Never After. The third book, unfortunately, A Curse for True Love, fell a little bit flat for me, and it just didn't have that wow factor I was kind of expecting when reading these books, but it was still so worth it. Like, the first 2 books were so nice. I read them, I think, in like 24 hours. It was super fast. I could not put these books down. It was so good. To tell you a little bit about the story, they follow a girl named Evangeline. She finds out that the love of her life is getting married to another woman, So she goes and she finds a fate who is the Prince of Hearts, and his name's Jax, and she asks him to help her out. And he promises to stop the wedding if she promises him 3 kisses. Now, she does not know what these kisses are about, who the kisses are for. So good. Absolutely amazing. The pacing was great. I could talk about these books for hours, so I'm just gonna stop here.
All right, so switching it up a bit, my next book is a non-fiction. It's a Christian book, which is The Ruthless Elimination of Harry by John Mark Comer. Let me read the back. Too often we treat the symptoms of toxicity in our modern world instead of trying to pinpoint the cause. A growing number of voices are pointing at hurry or busyness as a root of much evil. Within the pages of this book, you'll find a compelling emotional and spiritual case against hurry and in favor of a slower, simple way of life. First of all, the writing in this was very easy and fun to follow. I was chuckling throughout this book, which was nice. But the points he's making are all so interesting. It talks about today's world and how much, without us even realizing really, we have this mindset of having to be in a hurry all the time. And for us to feel value is by doing things constantly. It gives kind of more practical ways of how to change that in your life. And I took a lot out of this book. And it's definitely a good one to read now at the beginning of the year if you're looking to do some changes, if you're feeling motivated. I think this is a great start of the year type of book.
So my next favorite book is the Crescent City series by Sarah J. Maas again. I absolutely loved this series. So a little bit like with Once Upon a Broken Heart, I really, really loved the first 2 books, which is The House of Earth and Blood. Is that it? Yes. And The House of Sky and Breath. Whereas The House of Flame and Shadow, the first half of that book I loved. The second half was a bit, I wouldn't say boring. It wasn't boring. I was really into it. But it just didn't hit that spot. It didn't have that wow factor. So I really, really enjoyed the 2 books. I would give this maybe a 4.75 just because the first 100 or 200 pages were just an info dump. It was just information about the world, about how like the politics are structured, and it was so hard to get through those first 100 pages. But once those were done, I was obsessed. It was just perfection. It was perfection, and I was on the edge of my seat all the time. And to say something else, the first book was actually also a murder mystery, which I loved. I absolutely loved that. I didn't expect it because I was like, oh, I'm gonna read a romantic book. But actually had this whole mystery going on, and it had some great twists. So yeah, definitely a 4.75 read.
So for my 4th book, I've got Book Lovers by Emily Henry. I've been making my way through Emily Henry's books. This has been my favorite so far. Although I really loved all of her books, to be honest. I love her writing. But Book Lovers, it follows Nora, who I think she's a writer. She's a literary agent, and her sister are going for holidays for a month at this small little town called Sunshine Falls. And there she bumps into her, I guess, nemesis, Charlie, who is back from the city. So they know each other from, I think, New York or wherever it is that they live. But they bump into each other at that small town. And it's a romance, but a lot of the themes have to do with sisterhood.
Oh, that's cute.
And yeah, actually the reason why I liked this so much was because one of the main themes has to do with sisterhood. One thing with, I think, all of the books of Emily Henry that I've been reading so far is that the banter is really, really good. You'll be laughing one chapter, one paragraph, and then in the next one you'll be crying because the themes are hitting hard, and just the way she writes about them is really, really good. So I really loved this one. My favorite so far. And it was 5 stars.
Next for me is Quicksilver by Callie Hart. Now, this book I cannot give 5 stars to. It's maybe a 4-star read. However, the feels were there. The problem is that the writing was The writing was good. It wasn't excellent, but it was good. The plot maybe had some little holes. Some things just seemed a bit weird or out of nowhere. Yeah, the plot had some issues for me. However, I was obsessed with Kingfisher, who is our MMC, and the name Kingfisher is really weird. You need to get used to it. I was absolutely obsessed with him. I want to find this man in real life and marry him. But yeah, the romance was so good and I was so into it, and it just made me kick my feet in the air and giggle, and I just loved it. But definitely a 4-star read, I think, for the feels. The world building, again, was not amazing. Like, I would not want to be in the world of this book, but now that was made on purpose because I think, like, such a big part of the story is how bad the world is where they're living in. To say a little bit about the story, basically it follows Sarah Svein. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. So sorry if I'm saying it wrong. But it follows her, and she's, again, a human, and she goes by accident to the magical fairyland, and there she's the only one who can basically help the fairies with these gates that are made of Quicksilver, hence the name of the book. And as she is trying to help them and trying to learn how to open these gates, she works closely with our MMC, Kingfisher. It was a great book, a very good one.
So for my last book, I've got The Last Passenger by Will Dean. It's a thriller. It's, I think I gave this the lowest rating out of all of these. This has a 4.5. It's definitely not like a masterpiece when it comes to the plot and writing, but the reason why I loved it so much is just how much of a like popcorn thriller kind of page turner it is. So the story follows Kaz, who onboards a luxury cruise liner, RMS Atlantica, with her, I think, new lover, Pete. And the first night, they have fun, they eat, they dance, you know, do the things that you do on a cruise. And then the next morning, she wakes up, and everybody is missing. And she's on this huge cruise in the middle of nowhere, like in the ocean. And it kind of goes from there. And that all happens in the first chapter, I believe. From there, and it's a thick book. A lot happens. Definitely could not guess where the story goes. I had my jaw on the floor multiple times. There's a lot of twists and turns. And it's a type of book where every chapter is super, super short, like I think 2 or 3 pages. And each chapter ends in sort of a cliffhanger that makes you want to read more and more. So that's why it was one of my favorites, because I just had so much fun reading it. And sometimes, you know, for me, a book, it doesn't need to be the best writing or the best, you know, plot or the most clever story. If it's a book that I just really enjoy, it will get a high rating from me. So I really loved this. If you're into thrillers, I would recommend this.
Okay, so I'm very excited for this. My favorite books of the year. And I'm still going through the series, so I don't know what's going to happen. But it's the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J. Maas.
Can you see a theme in her,
In my reading.
in her reading?
Yeah, I'm a big Sarah J. Maas lover, and it's just all romance. It's embarrassing, but I'm looking to diversify that in 2025. Or at least with our book club, Amanda will, she will make me read different books. Throne of Glass. This is my favorite book of all time. Not just of 2024, but of all time. I kept hearing about this series. People would say that it's so amazing, it's so good, that they loved it. They kept saying that you get the worst book hangover after finishing the series. And I knew I had to read it, but I was just putting it off because I was afraid that I'm going to start it, and it's 8 books. I was afraid to start an 8-book series, first of all, because I know it's a commitment. But I was also afraid that I will get disappointed because it was so overly hyped. But turns out it was not overhyped. It was perfectly hyped because it is an amazing series so far. I've read the first 3 books. So I started actually with The Assassin's Blade, which is the prequel to the series. Then I went to Throne of Glass and Crown of Midnight. So it's about an assassin named Selena. I don't know if I'm saying the word correctly, so sorry about that. I'm just gonna read the premise of the book from behind. So, in a land without magic, an assassin is summoned to the castle. Selena Serdithian has no love for the vicious king, who rules from his throne of glass, but she has not come to kill him. She has come to win her freedom. If she defeats 23 murderers, thieves, and warriors in a deadly competition, she will be released from prison to serve as the king's champion. But something rotten dwells in the castle, and it's there to kill. When her competitors start dying mysteriously one by one, Selena's fight for freedom becomes a fight for survival, launching her on a desperate quest to root out the evil before it destroys her world and the people she has come to love. So there's a little bit of murder mystery. There is an evil king that we absolutely hate. There is a love story going on. And Selena is probably my favorite female main character I have ever read about. I absolutely love her so much. She has so much depth. She's so good, but she's also so brave and fierce. And I want to be Selena. I would not want her life though. Her life has been difficult, but I want to be her. And also, Sarah has a way of writing where she will put these little teeny tiny Easter eggs throughout the books. And the smallest thing you will read about, the smallest little detail will come to play in 2 books. And you're like, oh my goodness, like, that's what she was talking about. That's amazing. That's so crazy. And she keeps surprising you and she keeps you on the edge of your seat. And this series, honestly, I've never loved a series this much. If you're a fantasy reader and you have not picked up this series, do it. Do it now. You're missing out.
About this.
I'm so serious. And I've only read 3 out of 8. 3 out of 8. Wow, I have a long way to go, but I'm excited. Did I say everything I wanted to say about that? Because it's important.
You talked about it for like 10 minutes.
So those were our favorite books, right? We're finished.
Yeah, those were both of our 5 favorite books.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to go quickly into our TBR for the month of January. We'll go through these books a bit quicker because
it's been a long recording.
Yeah, it's been recording for a while, so we're
yes.
going to go quickly. The first one, which is a chunky one, I really want to get to this book quickly because I've been thinking about it. I've heard that it's really good. And it's Magnolia Park's The Last book, which is Into the Dark. So it's the last in the Magnolia Park series. I read the series, both Magnolia Parks and Daisy Hates. I've been reading it now in 2024. I'm really, really loving it so far. And I specifically really like the Magnolia Parks books, and this is the last one of the story of her and BJ. I can't talk too much about what it's about because it would spoil the previous books probably. But I've heard it's amazing. I've heard that, you know, it's a really good ending to the story, and Jessa Hastings' writing is amazing. Like, the quotes that this woman writes are out of this world. So super excited to read it, but it is a chunky one. So I think it's around 700 pages. I'm hoping to read it in January, but I might go over to February. We'll see how it all plays out. Yeah, that's my first
If you're
book.
a fantasy reader, that's nothing.
Yeah,
all my books have been 700 pages. So for me, you guessed it, it's the next book of Throne of Glass. So I've already actually started this one. It's The Heir of Fire by Sarah J. Maas. And it's the 4th book of the Throne of Glass series. I've been loving this book so far. And why this is exciting is because the Crown of Midnight, which is the 3rd book, had this huge revelation at the end that left me crying and screaming, and I was sending voice notes to Amanda like, oh my gosh, can you believe this? And yeah, so this picks up straight after that, and it's been very, very good. It's been super good. So I'm looking to finish this, and that's it. I'm excited.
My next book that I want to get to is Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. What I know about this book is that it follows a band, I think in the 70s? Yeah. in 1979. And it's done in like an interview format. So I was thinking of maybe listening to this actually as an audiobook, but I've heard it's really good. I know also the TV adaptation of this is really good. I've only read The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by this author, but I really, really liked her writing style. And I know in general her books are quite beloved, so I'm looking forward to reading this. I also know that she's going to be releasing a new book this year, I think in the summertime, so maybe we'll get to that eventually as well. But yeah, this is the next book I'll be reading.
For me, the next book will be Queen of Shadows, which is the fifth book in the Throne of Maas series. So once I'm done with Heir of Fire, the next book is The Queen of Shadows, and I'm especially excited for this because I have heard that many people believe this is their favorite book of the series. Yeah, this is supposed to be amazing. Okay. And I've seen little quotes from this that have already made me tear up a little bit, so I'm like, what will happen when I read this? I'm scared.
My next book, which actually will be for the both of us, is one of our book club picks, which is The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. We're both going to be reading it this month. And yeah, I think it just has to do with two sisters during World War II in France. It's a historical romance. And we've just heard a lot of good things about this in general.
It's supposed to be amazing. So I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm excited. It's a bit out of both of our comfort zones. But since we've heard so much good things about this book and this author in general, we wanted to check it out. Can you guys guess?
Can you guess which book this is? It is Empire of Storms in the Throne of Glass series. I'm determined to finish this series in the month of January, but we'll see because this is even bigger than the previous one. This is 700 pages. And actually, I haven't gotten the book yet, but you're supposed to tandem read this one with Tower of Dawn. Technically, the Tower of Dawn is also in my TBR, but I really don't think I will have time to read both of these in January, so I'll try my best. I'll probably start and then it will go over to February as well. But yeah, excited.
All right, for my next book, it's another book club pick. It's The Once Upon a Broken Heart, which is the one that Francesca picked for me. We went over this already in this video, so I'm not going to say too much. But what I will say is that it's my first fantasy book, like a proper fantasy book. So I'm really curious to see how I feel about it and whether I enjoy it or not. It's definitely completely out of my comfort zone. So that's kind of exciting.
That is exciting. Yeah, I'm excited for you, and I really, really hope you're gonna like it.
Yeah. So if you want to know my thoughts, we'll be posting in February the book club review video.
And last but not least, I'm gonna be reading The Silent Patient because Amanda picked this up for me for the book club as well. And Amanda already went through what this book is about. But yes, I am excited because I think I will like this book. I'm pretty sure. I like thrillers. I like mysteries. So it's been a while since I read something other than fantasy, but I think it's going to be good. Okay, I think that wraps it up pretty much.
Yeah.
That was everything.
All right.
Okay.
I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you got some good recommendations.
Yeah.
And we'll see you in the next video.
Yeah, thank you for watching and see you. Bye.
Bye.